The small community of survivors was surrounded by a mob of 1,000 zombies. Hello all. This is Jacobson and this is a brief retelling of the 5th and 6th episodes of the 6th season of the zombie series The Walking Dead. You can see the previous episodes at the links in the video description. Once this video gets 200 likes, I will release the next installment. Enjoy watching it.
While Diana examines the aftermath of the deadly wolf attack, Michonne tells Maggie that Glenn has not returned with the group, but promised to give a signal if he gets stuck. At this moment, Rick runs to Alexandria, and a walker comes out of the forest and surrounds him. Michonne opens the gate for Rick and slams it shut just as a huge herd appears. The frightened Alexandrians gather at the wall when the herd pounces on them from the other side. Rick assures everyone that Daryl, Sasha and Abraham will return in their cars and drive away the walkers, and Glenn and Nicholas will go right behind them. Meanwhile, he urges residents to minimize noise and bright lights. Feeling the growing frustration of the Alexandrians, Aaron admits that the wolves found out about Alexandria after they found photos of the camp in his lost backpack. He thanks Rick for successfully taking half the herd away from Alexandria. Diana goes into a daze. Later, Jesse drags the dead wolf from his kitchen to the cemetery and starts digging. Rick reminds her that they don't bury murderers in the walls of Alexandria. Terrified residents raid the pantry, despite Olivia's attempts to ration food. Spencer urges them to stop so that they won't all suffer the consequences in the future. The tenants obey, and Diana smiles proudly at her son. While walking, Aaron finds Maggie attaching a flashlight to a fishing rod. Nearby, he sees a group of Alexandrians who are writing the names of the dead on the memorial part of the wall. Glenn and Nicholas are on the list. Aaron finds Maggie in the armory and correctly guesses her plan to find Glenn. Seeing that she is determined to finish the job, he offers his help and suggests a safer way to get out than climbing the wall. At home, Diana looks at Reggie's wedding ring and comes out of her stupor. She spreads out a map on the table and excitedly draws plans for the expansion of the community. They include such promising items as education and research. At the bottom of the plans, she writes the Latin motto Dola Hi to you, Cel Olim, someday this pain will be useful to you. Diana finds Spencer drunk in the kitchen with a basket of stolen food. She reproaches him for the raid on supplies after his speech to the group. Spencer accuses Diana of giving everyone a false sense of security and blames her for Reggie and Aiden's deaths. Shocked by his behavior and the accusations thrown at her, Diana returns to a stressful state. Meanwhile, Carl asks Ron to help him find Nit. Ron refuses and threatens to tell Rick if Carl searches for Inits on his own. They quarrel, and Carl knocks Ron to the ground. In the infirmary, Denise is leafing through medical books in a desperate search for a cure for a cattle that is unconscious with a life-threatening infection due to a leg wound. Tara comes in and tries to cheer Denise up, but she's still upset and scared. Passing by a neighbor's house, Jesse sees through the window a zombified Betsy with her wrists cut. The residents of the house gather around and watch with curiosity as Jesse kills Betsy. "This is what life looks like now," she says. "We have to see it, we have to fight it, because if we don't, we will die." Meanwhile, Aaron shows Maggie the sewer grate and says that the sewer runs under the wall. Despite Maggie's protests, he insists on joining her. Once underground, Aaron expresses his guilt for bringing the wolves to Alexandria. He saves Maggie from two walkers who appear from the sewer mud. Maggie persuades him to turn back, as he is bleeding from a wound on his head, which will most likely need stitches. However, Aaron refuses, and they continue walking through the sewers. Back at the infirmary, Denise reads an excerpt from her medical book and injects saline into the infected leg of the cattle. She smiles as her syringe fills with pus and his heartbeat stabilizes. From the observation post, Rick calls Sasha and Abraham on the radio, but does not receive an answer. Ron finds Rick and tells him that he prevented Carl from chasing and Nit into the woods. He asks for shooting lessons. Rick hands his gun to Ron and instructs him to aim at walkers in packs. Meanwhile, Denise approaches Tara on the porch and kisses her, admitting that she is afraid for society. Tara smiles and insists it's not the end of the world. Maggie and Aaron reach the end of the sewer tunnel and find it blocked by walkers. Maggie says they can't go any further, and with tears in her eyes admits that she is pregnant. "I do not know if he is alive," Maggie is crying. Back at the house, Jesse tries to convince Sam to come downstairs. He stays on the second floor, afraid to go back to where Jesse killed the wolf. That night, Diana returns Spencer's stolen rations when she is attacked by a walker. Coming out of her stupor again, she strikes him several times with a broken bottle, knocking him down and covering herself with blood. Eventually, Rick comes and kills him. "I want to live and I want this place to stand," Diana tells him. Rick encourages her to lead the residents, but she insists that they need him. Maggie erases Glenn's name from the memorial wall. Aaron helps her, jokingly says that Aaron is a good name for a boy or a girl. Spencer replaces Rosita's from the observation post. She thanks him for destroying the wolves' truck and attributes to him the fact that the wall is still standing. After she leaves, Spencer snacks on stolen crackers. Rick joins Jesse in her garage and admits that he expected Glenn and the others to have already returned. She assures him that they may still be alive. Jesse says there must be a future and asks Rick to tell her there is something else. He nods and kisses her. Diana approaches the gate with renewed determination, watching the walkers bang against the fence. As she leaves, blood can be seen seeping through a crack in the wall. Daryl, Sasha and Abraham arrive at the 20-mile mark, which was set in order to lead the herd away from Alexandria. When they separate from the herd and begin the journey back to Alexandria, a group armed with assault pistols ambushes their cars. As they run away, Daryl crashes his motorcycle and gets separated from Sasha and Abraham. Sasha and Abraham crash their car and get out of the wreckage with weapons at the ready. They defeat the attackers, but run away after hearing that reinforcements have arrived. Daryl eludes the attackers and calmly rides a motorcycle through a scorched forest littered with charred corpses of walkers. He tries to radio Sasha Abraham, but gets no response. While examining the wounds on his arm, he hears a noise nearby. He hides the motorcycle under a pile of branches and finds two sisters, Tina and Sherry, with their hands up. At this moment, the man knocks him out from behind. While unconscious, Daryl sees the kidnappers rummaging through his belongings and putting a crossbow in a bag. The next morning, a man will be Daryl at gunpoint. Daryl insists that he is not who they think he is. Daryl's kidnappers lead him through the woods. As they walk on, he outlines a plan to find Patty and leave immediately. He tells how he and Sherry burned down the whole forest with walkers in it. He then explains that they have teamed up with the community, naively believing that together they will rebuild society. Daryl claims they should let him go, but Dee refuses to listen. Soon after, Daryl says they're making a mistake. Dee holds him at gunpoint and angrily demands that Daryl tell him if he poses an immediate threat and if he needs to be killed, and Daryl responds in the negative. They come to a closed parking lot full of walkers. Patty says Dee. She's gone. The women start to panic and Tina faints. While they are helping her, Daryl grabs their duffel bag and runs back into the woods, dodging Dee's shots. Once in the forest, Daryl again tries to contact Sasha Abraham by radio, but to no avail. He frantically searches in his duffel bag for his crossbow when a walker approaches him. Having finished with him, Daryl looks down at the scattered contents of the duffel bag. He notices a small refrigerator filled with insulin, which suggests that Tina's fainting was caused by diabetes. Meanwhile, Sasha and Abraham guess that the attackers intended to ambush someone else. Sasha insists that Daryl will try to regroup with them and that the best way to find a tracker like Daryl is to let him find them. In a nearby town, Sasha writes Dixon on the door of an office building. Abraham willingly pulls out a knife to stab a walker in the block, but Sasha warns him that it is not worth leaving evidence by which the attackers will be able to track their whereabouts. Inside the building, Sasha is located in the office, while a walker hits the glass wall of the adjacent conference room. She asks Abraham if he wants to stand guard or sleep, and Abraham decides to stay on watch. Later, Abraham tells Sasha that he really wants to kill a walker in the conference room. Sasha condemns him for his recklessness. Abraham waves her off and insists on standing guard all night. In the woods, Daryl sneaks to the place where the three strangers are and points his crossbow at Dee. He offers that in exchange for their gun and the wooden figure that Dee carved, he will return the duffel bag. Dee gives them the gun and the figurine, and Daryl gives them the bag with its contents. They are interrupted by the appearance of several men on a truck. Wade, the leader, orders Dee to return what he took, which is Tina and Sherry. The women defiantly declare that they are not going to return. In response, the truck starts plowing through the forest, trying to unsettle them. Daryl helps them find cover and gives the gun to Dee. He lures one of Wade's men into the path of a walker who bites him. Wade cuts off the man's hand and cancels the search. The next morning, Abraham searches the roof of the building when he finds an abandoned military vehicle with an RPG and a box of cigars. He notices a walker pressed against the railing of the bridge and sees a grenade launcher strapped to his back. Climbing on the fence to get a grenade launcher, Abraham leans over the edge and grapples face to face with a walker, tearing his shirt at the same time. The walker snaps, and Abraham finally retreats. He screams in frustration and returns to the Hummer to smoke a cigar. Sitting, Abraham watches as the rotten shoulder of a walker falls through the crowd of fences. The walker falls to the ground, and the launcher hangs from the fence on a belt. He brings the gun back to the office and confesses to Sasha that she was right about his recklessness. He thanks her for calling him a liar and declares that he would like to get to know her better. Daryl, the big guy and Sherry stumble upon a burnt greenhouse. Tina discovers 2 corpses inside, both of which are encased in molten glass. When she lays flowers to them, the corpses come to life, break through the glass and kill her. Daryl kills walkers while Shire breaks. Audie looks on. Daryl, go dig a grave for Tina. Daryl asks him how many walkers he has killed, how many people and why. Satisfied with Meddy's response, Daryl invites them to live in Alexandria. Dee accepts the offer and seems interested. Daryl brings Dee and Sherry to his motorcycle and explains that he doesn't know where Abraham and Sasha are, but is going to find them. Suddenly, Dee points his gun at Daryl and orders him to hand over the crossbow. Daryl obeys, and Dee and Sherry get on his motorcycle. Sherry throws some medical bags at Daryl's feet and says she's sorry. Daryl answers, and so it will be, after which they leave. Daryl finds a tanker truck in the woods. His license plate says Patty. He kills a walker in the cab and goes after Abraham and Sasha. Daryl, Sasha and Abraham are driving along the road in a tanker truck. Daryl is trying to radio Rick. A voice answers, "Help me."